Meanwhile, the little girl's mind raced with thoughts of her father. She wished she could call him and tell him she was okay. As the plane began to descend, she clenched her stuffed animal, trying to find comfort in the familiar toy. But as the pilot's harsh words echoed in her mind, doubt crept in. Would her father even know she needed him? Would he arrive in time to stop this madness? In that moment, an uneasy silence enveloped the cabin, and the tension only grew thicker. The pilot's decisions had put everyone on edge, but there was more at stake than he could ever comprehend. As the plane touched down, the little girl's fate hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking for Marcus to reach her before it was too late. As the plane taxied to the gate, the little girl's heart raced with anxiety. She could see the airport bustling outside the window, families reuniting, travelers rushing by. But all she could think about was the pilot and how he seemed so determined to keep her from her father. She could sense the fear in the cabin, the way the other passengers looked at her with concern and sympathy. What would happen when they landed? Marcus stood in the terminal, feeling the weight of every passing second. He scanned the crowd, searching for his daughter's familiar face among the throng of people. His mind raced with thoughts of what could be happening on the plane. Had the pilot crossed a line? Had he made a decision based on prejudice rather than protocol? Every scenario played out in his head like a movie, and with each one, his anger grew. The flight attendants began ushering passengers off the plane, but they hesitated when it came to the little girl. "Stay seated, honey," one of them said gently. "We just need to sort a few things out." She forced a smile, but the little girl could see the tension in her eyes. She had a gut feeling that something wasn't right, and it made her stomach churn. Finally, the pilot stepped off the plane, his expression rigid and unyielding. He walked towards the gate with purpose, completely unaware of the chaos he was about to unleash. Marcus, still on the phone with customer service, spotted the pilot from a distance. Something inside him snapped. "I need to speak to that man now," he shouted, breaking into a run. As he approached, the pilot turned, his brow furrowing as he met Marcus's fierce gaze. "You!" the pilot exclaimed, pointing a finger at him. "Are you the father of that girl?" "I am. What did you do to her?" Marcus's voice was a low growl, filled with protective fury. He could see the pilot's posture stiffen, but there was no way he was backing down. "I want to know why you're treating her this way." The pilot scoffed, crossing his arms defensively. "She was traveling alone, and I didn't feel comfortable with it. Rules are rules." "Rules? You've got to be kidding me. She's just a child." Marcus shot back, frustration boiling over. Around them, other passengers had begun to gather, sensing the tension building between the two men. Meanwhile, the little girl remained seated, her eyes wide as she listened to the argument unfold. She could hear her father's voice rising, and it gave her a flicker of hope. But it was quickly overshadowed by the pilot's dismissive tone. "This isn't your business. I did what I had to do to protect everyone on that plane." Tears threatened to spill from her eyes. Would her father really be able to make everything okay? She felt so small and powerless, trapped between the adult world of conflict and her own innocence. The pilot had dismissed her, and now her father was being dismissed too. As the passengers began to murmur, some expressing their outrage and others debating the pilot's decisions, a shadow loomed over the situation. One woman in the crowd, a journalist known for her work on social justice issues, had pulled out her phone, capturing everything. She was ready to report the incident and expose the pilot's behavior to the world. The little girl caught glimpses of the commotion outside her seat, but her world felt isolated. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was at the center of something much bigger than herself, a storm of prejudice and misunderstanding brewing all around her. Would her father reach her before the pilot's actions spiraled out of control? As the standoff continued, tensions reached a breaking point. Marcus, fueled by fear and love for his daughter, stepped closer to the pilot, his voice steady but fierce. "You will answer for this. You think you can treat my daughter like she's a threat? I will not let this go." The pilot's confidence began to waver as more people joined the growing crowd, their eyes focused on him, waiting for answers. The little girl's heart pounded in her. The tension swirled around them like a storm, and just as it felt like everything would erupt, a voice cut through the clamor, calm yet authoritative. "What's going on here?" A figure stepped forward, an airline supervisor, known for her commitment to fair treatment and equality. Her eyes scanned the scene, taking in the chaos and the charged emotions. As the climax approached, the little girl held her breath, praying that the tide was about to turn in her favor. The outcome was uncertain, and the air crackled with suspense. Everything was on the line, and the next few moments would determine not just her fate, but the future of countless others who had faced similar injustices. The airline supervisor stepped forward, her presence a beacon of authority amidst the chaos. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice calm but firm, cutting through the tension like a knife. Marcus felt a rush of relief, hoping she would bring reason to the situation and advocate for his daughter. But the pilot's expression shifted from anger to desperation as he seized the opportunity to regain control of the narrative. "She's a security risk," he shouted, his voice rising again. "I had to intervene before something terrible happened." The crowd erupted in outrage, their collective disbelief boiling over. Marcus could see the frustration on the supervisor's face, but he sensed that the pilot's claims were unraveling the progress they had made. "Let me speak with the girl," the supervisor said, her eyes darting between Marcus and the pilot. "I need to assess the situation myself." She approached the little girl's seat, and for a moment, the world around her faded away. It was just her and this authority figure, a glimmer of hope shining through the chaos. The supervisor knelt down to her level, her expression softening. "Sweetheart, are you okay? Can you tell me what happened?" The little girl hesitated, looking back at her father, who nodded encouragingly. I was just flying to see my dad," she stammered. "The pilot thought I was a problem because I was alone." Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke, the fear and confusion spilling out in a rush. "I didn't do anything wrong." As the supervisor listened, her frown deepened. "Thank you for telling me that," she said gently. But just as she began to formulate a response, the airport security team arrived, their presence instantly shifting the mood again. "Is there a problem here?" one of the security officers asked, eyeing the gathered crowd with suspicion. The pilot's demeanor changed once more, and he pointed a shaky finger at Marcus. "This man is causing a disturbance. He's threatening me and refusing to accept my authority." The accusations hung heavy in the air, igniting a spark of tension. The security officer turned his attention to Marcus, whose heart raced at the unexpected twist. "Sir, can you please calm down?" "We need to resolve this peacefully," the officer said, his voice level but edged with caution. "I'm not the one causing the problem." Marcus shot back, his anger boiling over again. "This is about my daughter, not about him feeling threatened. He's abusing his position, and I will not stand by while he intimidates a child." Chest as she realized that the battle for her safety had become a battle for justice, and as the stakes rose, she could only hope her father would prevail. The tension in the terminal thickened, a palpable energy crackling in the air as Marcus stood toe-to-toe with the pilot. Passengers surrounded them, some filming the confrontation, others exchanging anxious glances. The little girl remained in her seat, gripping her stuffed animal, her heart racing as she listened to her father's voice rise above the noise. "Why won't you admit that you acted out of bias?" Marcus pressed, his voice steady yet fierce. "She's a child, not a criminal. You've humiliated her for no reason at all." He could see the pilot's expression shift from confidence to uncertainty as more eyes turned their attention to him. It was a pivotal moment, and he could feel the crowd rallying around him, their murmurs growing louder, fueled by shared outrage. The pilot's brow furrowed, his bravado cracking under the mounting pressure. "I was just following procedure," he shot back, his voice lacking the conviction it had earlier. But Marcus wasn't letting him off the hook. "What procedure allows you to intimidate a little girl?" You think that badge gives you power over her life. That's not protection, that's fear. Around them the crowd shifted, more people stepping forward to support Marcus. A woman from earlier raised her phone, her voice breaking through the tension. This isn't right. We need to hold him accountable. This is a matter of racism and child safety. Her words resonated, echoing in the hearts of those who had been watching in disbelief. The little girl, feeling a flicker of hope from the growing crowd, looked up at the faces surrounding her. They were no longer strangers. They were allies, united in their outrage. She wanted to call out to her father, to let him know she was okay, but fear kept her frozen in place. What if this only made things worse? As the pilot's facade crumbled further, he turned on Marcus, frustration spilling over. You don't know what I've faced. You don't know what it's like to be in my shoes. His voice cracked slightly, revealing the cracks in his armor. But Marcus wasn't about to back down. You're right. I don't know your struggles. But I do know that using your power to oppress a child is never justified. The crowd roared, emboldened by Marcus's words. Cameras flashed as people recorded the escalating confrontation, capturing the moment for social media, for news outlets, for anyone who would listen. The tension reached a boiling point, the air thick with anticipation as the flight attendants looked on, torn between loyalty to the airline and their instinct to protect the innocent. With each passing second, the little girl's anxiety mounted. She needed to be with her father, to feel his comforting presence. What would happen if this confrontation escalated further? What if the pilot refused to back down? She looked toward the cockpit door, wondering if there was a way to escape this nightmare. As the flight's crew began to gather, the airport security team appeared in the distance, heading straight for the scene. The sight of the uniforms sent a shiver down Marcus's spine. Would they side with the pilot, dismissing the crowd's outrage? He knew he had to act fast. Listen, he called out, raising his voice above the noise. This isn't just about my daughter. It's about all the children who face this kind of treatment. We have to stand together and say enough is enough. His words ignited a fire among the crowd, their chants growing louder, a unified call for justice echoing through the terminal. But as security approached, the pilot's expression hardened again, masking his fear with anger. You're making a mistake, he warned Marcus, his voice low and menacing. This isn't over. The little girl felt a chill run down her spine. She could sense that the confrontation was reaching its peak, and everything hung in the balance. Would her father be able to protect her? Would justice prevail, or would they all be swept away in the chaos? As the tension escalated, the fate of everyone involved hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of an explosive climax that was yet to unfold. The arrival of the activist transformed the atmosphere in the terminal, injecting a renewed sense of hope into the crowd. She stepped forward, her presence commanding attention as she assessed the chaotic scene unfolding between Marcus, the pilot, and the gathering onlookers. What's happening here? She asked, her voice steady and authoritative. Marcus seized the opportunity, his heart racing as he explained the situation. This pilot is threatening my daughter and refusing to let her be with her family. He's acting out of prejudice, and we need to hold him accountable. The activist's eyes narrowed as she listened, the wheels in her mind turning as she weighed the information. The pilot, sensing his grip on the situation slipping, interjected, You don't know who you're dealing with. I have connections, people who will back me up. But instead of intimidating the crowd, his words only fueled their anger. The activist turned to the pilot, her expression unwavering. Connections don't excuse the mistreatment of a child. This isn't about power, it's about what's right. As she spoke, the little girl watched in awe, feeling a swell of courage within her. She realized she didn't have to be a passive victim. She could stand up for herself and others. With a determined breath, she stood from her seat, clutching her stuffed animal tightly. I just wanted to see my dad, she said, her voice steady, cutting through the noise. I didn't do anything wrong. The crowd fell silent, their attention turning to her. The activist smiled warmly, encouraging her to continue. Can you tell us what happened on the plane? The little girl looked around, her heart pounding, but she pressed on. The pilot thought I was a danger because I was alone. But I'm not a bad person. I just wanted to fly home. Her honesty struck a chord, drawing sympathetic murmurs from the crowd. Realizing the power of her words, the activist took a step closer, her voice rising. We need to support our children. They deserve to feel safe and heard. This pilot's behavior reflects a much larger issue in our society, and we must stand against it together. Just as the crowd began to rally behind her, the pilot's expression shifted from arrogance to desperation. He glanced around, realizing the tide was turning against him. In a last-ditch effort, he shouted, "You'll all regret this. I have people who can make your lives miserable." But before he could finish, the airport security team intervened, stepping forward to confront him. "We've received reports about your behavior," one of the officers said, his voice firm. "We need you to come with us for questioning." The pilot's defiance crumbled as he realized he was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The little girl's heart sewed as she watched the pilot being led away. Marcus rushed to her side, wrapping her in a tight embrace. "You were so brave, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice filled with pride. The activist approached. While the pilot was taken away, the crowd began to rally again, this time in a unified stand against a larger problem. The activist turned to Marcus and the little girl, determination in her eyes. "Together, we can shine a light on this. Your story is just the beginning. We will fight for justice and bring attention to these issues." The little girl, feeling empowered and brave, looked up at her father, who nodded in agreement. They had faced fear together and emerged stronger. But now they were ready to face a new challenge, one that involved not just their family, but countless others who needed their voices amplified. In that moment, as the crowd united in solidarity, the little girl realized that her fight was far from over, but it was a fight worth taking on. The stakes were higher than ever, and they were ready to shine a light on the darkness, ensuring that no child would ever have to feel afraid or unheard again. As the crowd dispersed, still buzzing with the gravity of the situation, Marcus and the little girl stood together, watching as the FBI agents coordinated their response. The pilot was taken away, his threats now falling on deaf ears. The little girl felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was soon replaced with determination. She understood that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Days turned into weeks as news outlets picked up the story, highlighting the pilot's actions and the systemic issues that plagued the airline industry. The little girl's brave stand resonated with people across the nation, inspiring others to come forward and share their own experiences of discrimination and fear. Marcus, filled with pride, became an advocate alongside the activist, participating in community discussions about child safety and equality. Together, they formed a coalition aimed at raising awareness about the importance of protecting children from prejudice and injustice. The little girl took on a central role in their campaigns, her voice now a symbol of hope and resilience. She spoke at schools and community centers, sharing her story and encouraging other children to speak up when they felt unsafe. In the midst of all this, the little girl received letters and messages from children around the country, thanking her for her courage. She felt empowered, knowing that her experience had made a difference and that she was helping others find their voices. The connection she forged with the activist also blossomed into a mentorship, guiding her as she navigated the complexities of advocacy. As the coalition gained traction, they worked closely with lawmakers to push for policy changes that would better protect children traveling alone and address discriminatory practices within the airline industry. The little girl knew that real change was a long journey, but she was ready to fight every step of the way. In the end, the story served as a powerful reminder that even the smallest voices can make a significant impact. It taught the importance of standing up against injustice and highlighted the strength found in community and solidarity. Together, they had turned a painful experience into a movement for change, and the little girl, once a victim, had emerged as a beacon of hope for countless others. With her father by her side, she knew they could face anything the future held, united in their quest for a safer, more equitable world.